It is Locked On Jazz for the, I think, 4th of February. We have two All-Stars. What an incredible honor. And they're really good. And you know what it means? We're really good when they play. We'll remind you of that today. 3 more teams to look at, and then we'll know what the entire trade market is for the Utah Jazz. We look at San Antonio, Sacramento, and one other. Points gained will reveal the biggest All-Star snub. It's all coming up on today's edition of Locked On Jazz.
You are Locked On Jazz, your daily podcast on the Utah Jazz. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello, I'm David Locke, radio voice of the Utah Jazz, Jazz NBA insider. This is Locked On Jazz, your daily podcast on the Utah Jazz, giving you insight, expertise, geeky numbers, and hopefully making it way better to be a Jazz fan each and every day. Thanks very much for making Locked On Jazz your first listen of the day. We are free and available on all platforms. You can subscribe on YouTube and just hit that little button and then hit the bell, and you'll be notified whenever we drop an episode. Good morning to Lacey and Bryce and Ray and Andy and South Wales for Andy this morning. Hope everyone's going well. Lacey's on it. Points gained Friday. By the way, Lacey, just so you know, still up there. Lacey made me this little thing. It was pretty cool. Actually, you can't see it. That's weird. I wonder why you can't see this little thing over here. It's really nice. So it's still there. It wasn't like a one-time thing that we put that there just to make it up. Good morning to Amanda as well. All right, so let's get to it. The Jazz have 2 All-Stars. It's an incredible honor. It's super important, frankly. It would have been catastrophic if one of them had not made the All-Star team, because then the small market narrative kicks in. Though that's, inaccurate. Darius Garland is an All-Star, a bunch of other people. But really, to have 2 All-Stars is just amazing. In 3 years in a row, and, non-number 1 picks, non-top 10 picks, developed inside to the Jazz. Donovan came a ball of fire. Rudy went from the G League to the All-Star game. It's pretty awesome. Both of their stories. Donovan, was not a primary scorer at Louisville. His year in which he was in Louisville, his sophomore year before he comes pro. He gets benched. Jordan, his sister, is the one who kind of says to him, make sure that you, get back to being yourself. This was in December of his last year in college, that he's not, basically he's benched. He's not a starter, and he works his way. It's why he can say, I never thought I'd be here. I think he knows at this point who he is and what he means to the league and what his role is. And then there's Rudy, 27th pick, long, gangly. I have this great picture of my daughter with Rudy when both of them are, my daughter's now 16, and Rudy was a baby, and she was virtually a baby. It was probably 7 years ago, so she's 8. And they just look like such kids. He's now this grown, ab-flexing physical freak, but he's become better at every single day. And it's a great story, right? He and Ian Clark walking out of the Staples Center. My memories, they're going to the La Quinta in Los Angeles to go for the G League. And he works his way to becoming a 3-time Defensive Player of the Year, now 3-time All-Star. Pretty outstanding. So really, really cool for both those guys. And also a really quick reminder that we're really good when they play. And they're really good. So, give some of these other teams credit. The Clippers, who I actually just thought were the best team in the NBA all of last year, even though we had the best record, are doing amazing things without Kawhi Leonard and Paul George. How they won, how the Clippers beat the Lakers last night's amazing. How the Clippers keep winning these games, it's just amazing. And the Warriors won a game the other night. So it can happen. We found a way to get through a shorthanded Denver team as well. But let's just remember how good we really are with both these guys. So if you look at pick and roll, and you look at pick and roll combinations, and you take, I think I have the top 654 pick and roll combinations. So you have to have run at least 300 pick and rolls together. The number 1 combination in all of the NBA is Rudy Gobert as the pick setter and Donovan Mitchell as the ball handler. 1.136 points per pick and roll. The next best is Seth Curry with Joel Embiid. Seth Curry's having an amazing year. And the next best, actually, interestingly enough, is Anthony Simons with Yusuf Nurkic. And the next best is Mike Conley with Rudy Gobert. And if you want to wrap up the top 11, you get Cameron Payne and JaVale McGee in Phoenix. You get Chris Paul and DeAndre Ayton in Phoenix. You get Derek White and Jakob Poeltl. I like Derek White. You get Trae Young and John Collins. You get Monte Morris and Nikola Jokic. You get James Harden and LaMarcus Aldridge. Aldridge will not play tonight, but we should see Harden. And you get Donovan Mitchell and Hassan Whiteside. So the reason I took it to the 11, definitely a little bit on our own. And if you go to 12, you actually get former Jakob Poeltl twice. So I just wanted to give him a shout out. But in the top 11, there's only one ball handler that's in there twice. Donovan Mitchell. He's there with Hassan Whiteside, and he's there with Rudy Gobert. And there's only one big guy that's in there twice. It's Rudy Gobert. He's in there with Donovan Mitchell, and he's in there with Mike Conley. These guys are really great. And we're really great when they both play. Let's dig into it. Our starting lineup, which has actually still played more possessions than any other five-man lineup in the NBA. Is that incredible? Our starting lineup, I'll double check that to make sure it's true, but I think the last time I checked, our starting lineup at 990 possessions in this weird year has still played more possessions than any team in the NBA. We're plus 15.2 when our starting lineup is on the floor. And that, to some extent, is actually some of the only minutes in which we play Rudy and Donovan together, because we match Rudy with Mike Conley, and then Donovan plays the other minutes. But overall, when Donovan Mitchell and Rudy Gobert are both on the floor, we're a plus 16. Our offense is in the 99th percentile, the best offense in the NBA at a 122, and our defense is in the 86th percentile when they're both on the floor. Our three primary lineups, one of which did include Joe Ingles, when Rudy Gobert and Donovan Mitchell are both on the floor, are plus 15, plus 13, and plus 16. And the next three are plus 36, plus 34, and plus 28. Might be an argument that you should be playing these guys together more. We've matched Rudy Gobert and Mike Conley all this time together, and maybe in the playoffs we're going to see these two on the floor together more. And the fact that Mike Conley is somehow willing this team to play well right now without playing with Rudy Gobert is an interesting little development. But it's a good reminder of just how good we are when we have both these guys. I mean, the real beauty of what these guys are is also the fact that they can carry the team because they're all-stars when one of them's not on the floor. Donovan has to play the non-Rudy Gobert minutes, and we're even when Donovan Mitchell is on the floor with Rudy Gobert off the floor. That's a big deal because Rudy Gobert is off the floor. So the fact that we're even in those minutes is certainly important. And then the minutes in which Rudy plays, and this is a little misleading because he's with Mike Conley in all these minutes, but don't have Donovan, we're plus 9. And then when we have them both together, we're rocking. So plus 16. Best offense in the NBA. So just a brief little reminder to everyone that we have two all-stars. When we have the two all-stars, we're super, super good. I know we've lost a lot in a row or whatever it is, and we won our last one, but it's a good, this is why you have two all-stars. This is what your team's built on. Credit to the LA Clippers who somehow find a way to win. Without Kawhi Leonard and without Paul George. And it's probably because, as I've said, I think they're the best team in the NBA and they're hovering around 500 without two all-stars for much of the year. It's pretty great. And credit to the Warriors for undermannedly winning a game the other night that they should never have won. And let's, hopefully we don't have to get many more. Hopefully these Donovan's back today. Hopefully, I think that's what we're going to find out. And then hopefully Rudy's back shortly. By the way, Joe Ingles will be talking to the media today, so you might want to grab onto 1280 The Zone or 97.5 today to hear that. That should be around 10 a.m. if you haven't already heard this. And another programming note for you, Niall Campbell sat down with Rudy Gay for a wonderful piece at UtahJazz.com, so I hope you will grab that. We will continue our ESPN trade machine. Who do they have that we might want with Phoenix? No, we did Phoenix. Portland, Sacramento, and San Antonio to wrap it up. We have looked at every single team, and you'll have a clear, complete view of what our options are with every single player and every single roster. And then we'll points game Friday as well here on Locked On Jazz. Thanks very much for making us your first listen of the day. Today's show is brought to you by Murdoch Hyundai, located at 4646 South State Street, also located in Logan and in Linden. I'm currently driving the zippy, fast little Kona, and I've had a great time with that. I had the Sonata, a red one that was super cool and drove beautifully and was totally awesome, and somebody took it from me. Well, okay, so somebody bought it and I had to return it, but I'm still kind of bitter about it. But I love those Hyundais, and the Murdochs are great people, Blake and the family. Blake, as we've talked about before, not charging you more than MSRP, so you get exactly what the value is. Cars are generally right now being sold before they get on the lot, so if you reach out, we'll set you up with a meeting at any of the Murdoch locations. You can go see the cars and then get on the list to make sure it's there for you when it comes in. They do have them coming in much more quickly than they did in the past. That's at Murdoch Hyundai, located at 4646 South State Street in Logan and in Linden. Feel free to email me first at dlock09@gmail.com. That's dlock09@gmail.com. And I'll set up a private meeting with you with and give you the VIP treatment of our friends over at Murdoch Hyundai. Today's show also brought to you by Bet Online. Bet Online's got all sorts of great stuff for you at betonline.net. They've covered more props, odds, lines than ever before as football continues. It's March to the big game. BetOnline.net remains the best spot for all of your sports scores, podcast news this season. And it's not just football. BetOnline has up-to-the-minute info on pro and college hoops, NHL, boxing, UFC, along with live real-time updates on current games. Don't wait to take advantage of all the new amazing offers available for the 2022 season. Bet Online, where the game begins. What's the line, do you think, tonight on Jazz and the Brooklyn Nets? By the way, I just saw the line on the AFC NFC Pro Bowl. Like, if you're betting the Pro Bowl, we might need to talk. Jazz are a 4.5-point favorite over the Nets, who come in having lost 6 in a row. They're 4-6 when Kyrie plays, 6-10 since he rejoined the team. Interesting. We're always got to watch Minnesota. They do not play tonight. Philadelphia is a 1.5-point dog to Dallas. Portland is an 8.5-point favorite over Oklahoma City. Later in the evening, NBA futures championship odds. Brooklyn is still number one at plus 340. Now the Warriors are plus 375. Phoenix is up to plus 550. Bucks plus 700. Heat at plus 1,200 and the Jazz at plus 1,200. So we still have the 5th best odds to win the title despite everything we've been through. Pretty interesting at betonline.net. All right, let's play. Who do they have that we might want? Our final edition of Who Do They Have That We Might Want. We start with the Portland Trailblazers and Dame Lillard, who at 4 years and $40 million and wants an extension. I don't actually know if you want any more, which makes it a very interesting situation. CJ McCollum is at $30 million for 3 years. Not sure I'm going there. This one's pretty interesting. Norman Powell for $15 million and for 4 more years. Wow, that is a long contract in a league that does not give out long contracts anymore. But what do we think on Norman Powell? Powell is now 28 years old. He's shooting 41% from threes, career 38% from three. His last 2 years are 40, 39.9, 41, and 41. So he's pretty much a bona fide 40% three-point shooter. He's small. He's 6'3", 215. I loved him out of the draft out of UCLA because he had played multiple roles at UCLA. He'd been the man. He'd been complimentary. He'd done a bunch of different things. Toronto moved him last year for Gary Trent, despite the fact he was averaging 20 points a game and didn't want to pay him, which makes me a little nervous. But Toronto likes long, big guys, and Norman Powell's short and 6'3". Does he really, if you're making that play, the Norman Powell play is a little bit of the post-Mike Conley era with Donovan Mitchell play. He also becomes your third guard. You become a 3-guard lineup of Conley, Mitchell, and Powell at all times. And then I don't know what you do with Jordan Clarkson and how he fits into the roster. Joe Ingles' contract would probably get this deal done, and you probably have to add something to it, or maybe they want Clarkson. But they're also getting off 4 years of a contract on a team that's not winning. Norman Powell's interesting. Like, it's at least this, when I say interesting, I just think what we've done by going through all these teams is that you find out like who's available and what the discussions of our front office are. I'm sure Norman Powell's available with a 4-year contract, and I'm sure there's a discussion taking place about him. He's not much of a rebounder. He's actually not much of a passer. I would be lying if I actually had a good vibe on whether he's a good defensive player. But, he can really shoot it. He can play it. I like him an awful lot. I did when he was there. Robert Covington is a $12.9 million player for 1 year. He fits your long and athletic. I have actually no idea if he's a good defensive player. I actually think he might fit into the group of conceptually you love what he is as a player, and reality of what he is might be different. This year, shooting 34% from three, career 35.7%. He's only shooting 38% overall. He's now 31 years old. He's 6'7", 210. So the body makes you get dreamy. The long arms get you even more excited. The rim finishing that he has right now and the way he is going to the basket gets you a little less interested, as he used to take 24% of his shots at the rim, and now he's taking 16%. He's only finishing at 60%. He's a purely assisted three-point shooter. I think 96% of his threes are assisted. So I don't know. Robert Covington, Norman Powell. These are two names that you should chew on. Covington, everyone loves Covington. He ends up on a different roster all the time. Yusuf Nurkic for Prime Night. Larry Nance was a player who I really was excited for in the offseason. I thought Portland got a steal. And I'm not sure, and Cleveland's been better without him. So I'm maybe wavering a little bit there. 2-year, $10.7 million. I would have had him playing a little small ball 5. I mean, he's really our Rudy Gay, who we have instead of Larry Nance, is kind of what my like of him there is. Nasir Little's out for the year. He's a really nice player. Portland's $3 million over the cap. So it's interesting to know whether they're going to try to make any moves in here. Cody Zeller, I would have liked as a backup center. He's a nice player. Are there any of these guys at the end that they're going to couple with something just to get out from under the tax? And I think the answer is yes. That Portland's got to make some sort of a move here to get out of the tax. Frankly, Norman Powell for Joe Ingles probably gets them close to out of the tax. But then we have Norman Powell for 4 more years, and I don't know that that's actually what our salary cap needs. So anyway, interesting rundown. Let's go to Sacramento. The first name everybody wants to talk about is going to be Harrison Barnes. But let's start with De'Aaron Fox. They'll probably move him, or they're talking about moving. I don't know if they probably will, but they're vowing they won't. But it's interesting. $28 million at 5 years. I don't know if it's a player we would add to the list. Fox and Mitchell would be quite a backcourt, but they'll be fighting for the ball the whole time. So that's a wild idea. I don't think really fits. Buddy Hield's a great shooter. Thank goodness the Lakers didn't make that move and they went to Westbrook instead. They'd be far better with Buddy Hield. Harrison Barnes. He's got a year left at $20 million. Sacramento has claimed for a while they wanted 2 first-round picks. I don't think they're going to get it. We've kind of talked about this, that there's just not a lot of market availability for teams. So do they get a first-round pick? Is Harrison Barnes worth it? He's shooting 41% from 3 this year, which is great. He's a 38% three-point shooter. He's 6'8", 25. He's 29 years old. On the metrics of whether he shouldn't be aging, his metrics that look at aging he doesn't block or steal much. He gets less than a steal a game. He blocks about 0.2 shots a game. So he's not active in that way. His rebounding is average, maybe a little better than average, but not much. He's non-existent on the offensive glass. Last 2 years, he's moved the ball more than he used to. His usage rate is up this year. His overall shooting kind of on the floor. One of the things I always look at is, does he still go to the rim? He's at the rim 22% of the time. Last year's 31. His rim finishing was high last year in the 70s. This year it's down to 63, so that's a little bit of a drop. His three-pointers are purely assisted. 94% of his three-point field goals are assisted. His corner threes are now 49% on corner threes for Harrison Barnes. Woo! So $20 million for another year there, but Barnes is going to cost you Joe plus and probably a pick. And does he, and some more luxury tax probably, and does he make us a championship team? That's the question you have to ask. If these moves are moves that only move us on the slightest margin, in other words, just give us a little bit of a difference, I actually think the better move for the franchise is Joe Ingles on a pick to Oklahoma City and get out from under, and probably another player and get out from under the tax. For the long-term well-being of the ownership group and the team, like that to me is actually the most logical, unless you've really got somebody you think changes our championship chances. Don't do a cosmetic deal for the sake of a cosmetic deal. Make sure that you do it in a manner. If you think Harrison Barnes changes who we are, Harrison Barnes finish games for us, like that's, if we've got a player we can make a trade for who's going to be on the floor in the fourth quarter of Game 6 in LA against the Clippers in the first round of the playoffs. That's assuming we're the 3 seed and they're the 6. I don't know how that happened, but anyway, then this is an interesting possibility. But if we're trading for a player that's not going to be on the floor for us in those final 8 minutes of the ball game of a Game 6, then I actually think as a franchise we're better off taking Joe Ingles and another player and getting out from under the tax and probably have to give up a draft pick. We put ourselves in this bind. You got to pay the piper for it, but get out from the repeater and then rebuild next year with a little bit of being able to spend some more money and do some more things without having to be inside the repeater tax. Other players on Sacramento of any interest, Mo Harkless has got another year at 4.3. I'm not sure that the concept of Mo Harkless. Alex Len has got another year at 3.7. I've always liked him as a backup center, maybe. A possibility there. Robert Woodard II, who nobody likes other than me, and maybe they're right and I'm not, is there. Let's go to San Antonio. This one's DeJounte Murray's not getting moved at $15 million. Derek White's interesting to me, and I've brought up his name before. So he's got 3 more years left at 15, which is a lot. And he's really not shooting it well. But when you start kind of digging into second level metrics, he's really pretty good. He's actually a stunningly good kind of almost rim defender. He's a very good pick and roll defender. He was in on that list of top 10 pick and roll combinations. He was one of the 7th best pick and roll combinations. I think if I run the defensive numbers, he surprisingly comes out pretty well. He's 6'4", 190. He's 27 years of age. He's shooting at 31% from 3 this year. It's really been a struggle for him from the 3-point line. He opened the year at 30, 29, 24 in the opening 4 months. And then in February, he has finally gotten hot. He's 8 of his last 14 to get his number back up over 30% from 3. But this one's interesting. San Antonio doesn't need the money, but they also might not want to have Derek White at $15 million for another 3 years. And so can the Jazz do something with expirings or something of that sort? White's, again, it's, this is another play where he's small. He's not as small at 6'4", 190. He's bigger than some others. But if it's Joe, you're trading 6'8" for 6'4", which isn't great. But again, you're now playing a 3-guard lineup of White, Conley, and Mitchell most of the time because this guy plays. Again, I don't know what it does about Jordan. But White plays 30 minutes a night. He's always been a really good plus-minus player. He's a pretty good assist guy, a pretty good rebounder. There's just a bunch of metrics where every time I run metrics on a player, what I end up finding out is like I'm surprised how often Derek White's name shows up, is what I would tell you. And who knows whether or not he's as good as any of those numbers. He's not particularly athletic. He's not particularly awe-inspiring, but he does do a lot of things really well. And that's an interesting name to me. And it does seem as though there's some reason why San Antonio might be willing to do something. Thaddeus Young, 1 year at 4.1. Not sure whether that fits us. Doug McDermott, I've always liked, but he's not got any defensive prowess at 13.7 for 3 years. Are they trying to get out from under that? Maybe worth talking about. So the one thing on Doug McDermott, the way I feel about JJ Redick and Kyle Korver is you almost have to run the offense to him. McDermott's not nearly as much of a 3-point shooter as you think. He does get in the mid-range and does a bunch of that, particularly in San Antonio. And then otherwise, all their young guys, I don't think they're looking to move any of them. All right, that wraps up our run through the NBA. We've talked about a bunch of names from Luke Kennard to Derek White to Harrison Barnes. Who, at the end of all of that, is that you're most interested in the Utah Jazz making a deal for now that we've looked at every single team. Today's show is brought to you by Built Bar. Oh, I love my Built Bars. I love my chocolate, 100% chocolate. I love the coconut brownie. I'm going to have to order the coconut marshmallow puffs to see what they're like because I'm kind of blown away by how good the puffs are. 140 calories, 17 grams of protein, just 6 grams of sugar. Coconut brownie chunk available as well. Oh, I could build my own box. I could put coconut marshmallow and coconut brownie chunk together. And all you coconut haters, ha! You can also get mint brownie or double chocolate. That was a ha for coconut haters. Caramel almond delight. They're all fabulous, and the macros are amazing. It's Built Bar, 130 calories, 2.5 fat grams, 4 grams of sugar, 17 grams of protein. It's all at built.com. Promo code Locked On gets it a 15% off. That's Locked On. Get you 15% off. In the chat room, feel free to drop in and let me know which of the over this whole series or just today, if any of those players moved your meter as players you'd want to have on the Jazz roster. All right, it's time for a Points Gained Friday. If you are new to Points Gained is our offensive metric that we exclusive to Locked On that looks at offensive players' impact and the possessions they use during a game compared to league average. What? So let's take, for example, LeBron James. He uses 23.5 scoring opportunities a night. If those scoring opportunities are distributed to average players in the NBA, LeBron James scores 2.8 points per night more than average players in the NBA. That's good. That's the 5th best of any player in the NBA. Most years we have 3 players over 3 and about 10 players over 2. We're a little higher than that. Here are the points gained leaders this year, and it's a little interesting in regards to like who's an all-star. So Nikola Jokic is the most impactful offensive player in the league. He uses 20 scoring opportunities a night. He's 3.8 points above league average. That's why Denver survives. And so Jokic is the number 1 most positively impactful offensive player. Number 2, if you're new to this, will stun you and you'll say, what? It's Rudy Gobert. What happens when you shoot 71%? No player in the history of the NBA has ever shot 70% from the floor and scored 15 points a game. He's at 3.7 points above average. The impact of this is massive. You can tell me that Rudy's not an offensive player and all these other silly things, but the fact of the matter is, in about a little more than 15% of the Jazz possessions, they're 3.7 points better than league average offensively on those possessions that Rudy uses. So the rest of the team just keeps them above water, and they're nearly unstoppable offensively. It's why they're the best offensive team in the league. It's why Denver's as good as they are. Kevin Durant is number 3, all-star, all-star, all-star. Number 4 is Jarrett Allen, who at 11.5 scoring opportunities a night is a 3.1 and did not make the all-star team. And that is the biggest snub of the all-stars. Jarrett Allen most certainly should have made the all-star team this year for Cleveland, because almost all of the next set of players are all all-stars. LeBron James, all-star. Karl Anthony Towns, all-star. Giannis Antetokounmpo, all-star. So of the 7 players that are 2.7 or better in points gained, only Jarrett Allen is not an all-star. And that, my friends, is I think why unquestionably Jarrett Allen is the snub of the All-Star game. If you eliminate centers, the league has become centers are more important than ever before. Here are the top points gained players. Kevin Durant, 1. LeBron James, 2. Giannis Antetokounmpo, 3. I think he's really a center. Okungbo from Atlanta is actually 4. Zach LaVine of main guys is 4. John Collins, Atlanta, is 5. Brandon Clark in Memphis is 6. If you go to wing players, Eric Gordon, who we talked about in trades, is next at 1.5. Gary Payton Jr., stunningly. DeMar DeRozan is on the peak end of efficiency. Pretty interesting. Nicholas Batum, 1.4. Harrison Barnes at 1.3, who we talked about as well in trade opportunities. So some of the names that we've talked about today, we talked about Derek White, who I'm sure is a negative points game player this year with his lack of shooting. And we talked about Norman Powell. Norman Powell is a plus 1.1, which is super high. Derek White I just got Portland. I did not get San Antonio. Derek White and of San Antonio is what is wrong with my charts? Oh, there's an SA, an SAS, and an SAN, and they're SAN. Derek White is a negative 0.4, but rising. So looking at the Utah Jazz this year, and we can see where Joe is. Joe was so different than he was a year ago. He was like the main reason we were so great last year. It's why I thought he should have won 6-man. Rudy Gobert, 3.7. Bojan Bogdanovic, 1.1. Just having a better year than people realize, and he's despite slumping recently. Don Whiteside, 1.1. Royce O'Neal, 1.0. That matters. Like our non-offensive players, Royce O'Neal and Rudy Gobert combined to use 16 scoring opportunities a night and are 4.7. Big deal. Mike Conley, 0.9. Eric Paschall, 0.5. That's great. Trent Forrest, 0.3. So a non-shooter is above average because when he does shoot. Donovan's 0.3, which is a major step in his all-star year. Elijah Hughes, 0.3. Joe Ingles was a minus 0.1. Rudy Gay is a minus 0.2. Jared Butler is a minus 0.3. Jordan Clarkson is a minus 1.2. That minus 1.2 means that Jordan Clarkson's negative eliminates Bojan Bogdanovic's positive every night. And it's kind of the premise of this whole thing is that inefficient offensive players are far more detrimental than you realize. LeBron's at 2.8. Malik Monk is at 1, if you want to know the Lakers. Dwight Howard's at 0.7. Anthony Davis is having actually a pretty decent year at 0.6 for him. Carmelo, excuse me, is positive at 0.5. And then Russell Westbrook is minus 1.7. So Russell Westbrook eliminates the positive that is Malik Monk and Anthony Davis every night. Talen Horton Tucker, who they like to blow up as being some terrific player, is a minus 1.4. I haven't looked at this, but I would guess the reason the Clippers are good is everybody's above average, except for probably Reggie Jackson. Let's see. Zubac's 1.8, Batum 1.4, Harkenstein 1.1, Amir Coffey 1, Kennard, who we talked about as a trade possibility, 0.9, Terrence Mann 0.1, Ibaka even, and then Marcus Morris is a negative 0.8, Eric Bledsoe's a negative 0.8, and Reggie Jackson's a minus 2.1. By the way, for all the talk, and I've been amongst of it, that Paul George is having this great year. He's a minus 1.5. Little surprised to see that in there. All right, that is our points gained Friday. Oh, you guys want to know who the least good offensive players are, just so you can know. And yeah, this is not very nice of you to always want to know this. You guys are mean. Jalen Suggs is of guys who actually play as the least efficient offensive player with the biggest negative impact. He's shooting 36% from the field and 24% from three. That should be worrisome for Orlando, even though he's a rookie. Nickeil Alexander-Walker in New Orleans. Then Josh Giddey is the third least. Reggie Jackson is the fourth worst offensive player this year. Cade Cunningham, 5. Davion Mitchell, 6. All rookies. Ricky Rubio's next. Do I not have centers on here right now? No, I haven't. Okay. Ricky Rubio. Julius Randle comes in. Add DeJounte Murray for all the love. Russell Westbrook. Cole Anthony in Orlando. Jalen Green. Precious Achua. Okashevsky. Killian Hayes. All the young players. Why young players don't play? Kevin Porter. And then Paul George. Interesting. Paul George, Julius Randle. Few players in there. All right. That wraps us up. That is Locked on Jazz for a Friday. Brooklyn Nets are in town. No Kevin Durant. 24 points a game from Kyrie. 23 from James Harden. And hopefully Donovan Mitchell returns. All awesomeness. This has been Locked on Jazz. Thanks very much for tuning in this week. Hope all is going well. We will we'll postcast after the game, and then Monday. And trade deadline week is upon us. Now it's time for your second listen of the day. Go listen to Locked on NBA's Locked on Now. Have a good one. Talk to you soon.